Hello, here I am again in the name of the sovereign creator of heaven and earth, the Lord Jesus Christ. We are continuing with our new series of videos. Our topic this time is relative, actually in part, against absolute. It has always been standard procedure for Satan and his servants to attack strong arguments in favor of the truth as if they were weak and wrong. In today's world, take a hard look at any principle or law that Satan is using, such as everything is relative or hate speech. It is the opposite that will be true. The purpose of this article is to take up the claim that everything is relative. Look, the statement itself, everything is relative, rejects the existence of the sovereign creator because he cannot be relative, obviously. He is absolute. Anyone who rejects the creator belongs to Satan's kingdom. And that is very serious because that person will share the same eternal destiny as Satan. Okay, to begin, the truth is not relative. Neither, for that matter, is it democratic. It is not determined by human vote or opinion. The truth is. The truth, or actual fact, about anything is not relative, it is absolute. It is our perception, or opinion, or interpretation that is relative. And that is because no one on earth has complete knowledge about anything. Our knowledge is condemned to be partial, incomplete. That is because we are finite, small, with limited mental capacity. We are surrounded by limitation. Our bodies confine us to one place at a time, as well as limit us in a variety of other ways. Our language limits how we think, as does our culture. And our ignorance of the supernatural condemns us to be wrong about all sorts of things. As the Creator's manual affirms, quote, we know in part. That's in 1 Corinthians 13, verse 9. However, attention please, however, knowing in part does not mean that we do not know at all. It also does not mean that the in part is not real truth. If you cut off a piece from a beef steak, that piece does not stop being real meat, okay? It is in part, but it's still real. Even though our knowledge is not complete, it can be adequate for practical purposes within a given context. Perhaps the most serious consequence of the doctrine that everything is relative has been the quote conclusion that man does not and cannot know anything for sure, that true knowledge does not exist. However, that conclusion is obviously false. Facts are facts, and they exist. The sun exists, water exists, trees exist, fire is hot, ice is cold, 2 plus 2 equals 4. It was true knowledge that permitted a man to walk on the moon. Now, if you want to know for sure that fire is hot, just stick your hand in a fire, okay? I lived and worked with an indigenous people in the Amazon jungle for a number of years. They did not believe in germs and bacteria because they couldn't see them. They couldn't see them. So they don't exist. However, that did not prevent them from getting sick and dying, okay? What they believed did not change the fact. The C.S. Lewis Institute recently posted an article by Christopher L. Rees, quote, isn't morality relative? Since it says some of what I want to say so well, at least I think is well said, I will repeat some of it with their permission. Quote, it is widely accepted in the Western world today that morality is relative. People who say this usually mean that morality is a matter of personal or cultural sentiment that has no objective basis in reality. Many modern people tend to think of the physical world as consisting of matters of fact, like it's not relative whether water is H2O, but of morality as being a matter of subjective opinion. If we accept the modern secular story of the world, this is a natural belief. If there is no higher authority on moral issues than individual or group opinion, then moral judgments are indeed subjective. Further, if the naturalistic story is true, and all that exists are matter and energy governed by natural laws, then good and evil are illusory concepts with no basis in reality. After all, no material thing has the property of being good or evil. There are no good or evil atoms or molecules. Thus, neither good nor evil exists. Yes, one could have ideas about good and evil on that view, but they wouldn't be any different from ideas about unicorns or leprechauns. None of these in reality would exist, end quote. And I say, well, up to a point. As I've already said, I lived and worked with an indigenous people in the Amazon jungle for a number of years. Although they had never been exposed to the Bible, they had a morality. Yeah, they had a morality. They believed that some things are good and others are bad. If I'm not mistaken, all cultures in the world have a morality of some sort. Certainly, without cultural norms, people cannot coexist peacefully. The sovereign creator, while walking this earth in the body of Jesus, gave the clue. Quote, beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves. You will know them by their fruits. Do people gather grapes from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? Just so every good tree produces good fruits, but the rotten tree produces evil fruits. Matthew 7:15 through 17. Here the Lord used rotten and evil, or actually malignant, because he was really talking about people, not trees. So just check the results of what people do. If the results are bad, then that activity is not good. I'm going to quote again now from that article. Naturalism undermines any basis for objective moral values and duties. The key word here is objective, which means something that exists or is true regardless of what any person or group of people believe about it. Even if every person in an ancient culture believed that human sacrifice was a good and necessary practice, they would still be objectively wrong, that is, if an objective standard of morality exists. And the only plausible candidate for such an objective standard is God, the Creator, whose very nature determines what is good. Many who hold to a naturalistic worldview have never thought through its logical implications, especially in relation to morality. A number of leading naturalistic thinkers, though, have recognized and acknowledged that morality and naturalism are incompatible. It is difficult for most secular moderns to come to grips with this idea, and one can hardly blame them, because the implications of naturalism are truly horrifying. It represents the complete dissolution of all objective meaning, value, purpose, and morality, end quote. Wow. Please stop and think. Just please stop and think. Is that not truly horrifying? But do you really want a life that has no meaning, no value, no purpose, no morality? Is that what you want? In today's world, are not many people lost in a moral quagmire with no purpose in life? Any naturalistic worldview gives a false answer to the four basic questions that every human being should consider. 1, who am I? 2, where did I come from? 3, why am I here? 4, where am I going? A naturalistic worldview can only give false answers because it is entirely based on false presuppositions. All genuine science is based on the principle of cause and effect. We observe an effect and try to isolate the cause. And it is logically impossible for a cause to produce an effect larger or more complex than itself. Any human being who is both honest and intelligent, when confronted with the observable universe with its incredible organization and complexity, is obliged to conclude that there must be a cause, all capital letters, C-A-U-S, cause, a cause with intelligence and power beyond our understanding. To refuse to do so is to be perverse. The evolutionary hypothesis of origins is scientifically impossible. Stupidly, ridiculously, absolutely impossible. A number of years ago, decades I meant to say, a number of decades ago, the scholar Sir Frederick Hoyle, an Englishman, was contracted to evaluate the scientific probability that life could have appeared on the planet by chance. He had unlimited funding and free access to the libraries. He arrived at the following conclusion, quote, "It would be easier for a whirlwind to pass through a junkyard and a perfect Boeing 747 come flying out the other side than for life to have appeared on our planet by chance," end quote. Well, okay. That life could have originated by an evolutionary process is absolutely impossible. Obviously, stupidly, ridiculously impossible. Or just by the way, any questions about the morality of the Creator have nothing to do with science. And how is any sinner competent to evaluate that morality? Okay, going on, since the sovereign Creator exists, he holds absolute authority over what he has created. But in what ways can authority be exercised? It can be exercised by fiat, by sovereign intervention. But doing that to beings created in God's own image would turn them into robots, which would be contradictory to the purpose in creating such beings in the first place. As the sovereign said to the Samaritan woman while he walked this earth, quote, "The true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father is seeking such to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth," John 4:23 and 4. If the Father is seeking spontaneous or at least voluntary worship, then it cannot be coerced or forced. But how can man know what the sovereign Creator wants? There must be communication. But what form could such communication take? To communicate concepts, God would have to use human language. Since human language is governed by rules, phonological, grammatical, semantic, the Creator would have to limit himself to the repertoire of possibilities offered by the language of choice. Hebrew Old Testament, Greek New Testament. Now, if the Creator was only concerned to transmit information to a given individual or group at a given point in time for a specific purpose, it could be done orally, sure, either speaking directly or through a representative. But if the Creator's purpose was to furnish orientation that would be valid for subsequent generations as well, then the appropriate form would be in writing. Consider 1 Chronicles 16, verse 15, quote, "The word which he," it's God, "commanded for 1,000 generations," end quote. Well, no, there have scarcely been 300 generations since Adam. So the Creator's written revelation will be in effect until the end of the world. 1,000 generations, end of the world. However, to be in effect until the end, it must be kept available until the end. For more about that subject, please see my book, God Has Preserved His Text, either the 5th or 6th edition. I believe the 5th edition you can get from Amazon. The 6th you have to get here in Brazil from the Clube de Autores. Just Google Clube de Autores. Up there you'll have asking for the author, put in my name, and you'll get the whole list of at least 10 or 12 titles there. Going on, as a linguist, just by the way, if you don't want to buy it, go to my site, Prunch.org, and you can download it free. Okay. Sorry, as a linguist, I'm a PhD in linguistics. Sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. Sorry, I skipped a paragraph. Going back, if the sovereign creator exists and if he has addressed a written revelation to our race, then nothing is more important for us than to know what he said, with a view to obeying it if we're smart. This because such a revelation will have objective authority over us. Although, to be sure, the Creator gives us the option of rejecting that authority, but due regard should be given to the consequences, okay? However, objective authority depends on verifiable meaning. Did you get that? Verifiable meaning. If a reader or hearer can give any meaning he chooses to a message, any authority it ends up having for him will be relative and subjective, like that's the neo-orthodox approach. As a linguist, I'm a PhD, I affirm that the fundamental principle of communication is this. Both the speaker or writer and the hearer or reader must respect the norms of language, in particular those of the specific code that's being used. At the moment, we're using English. If the encoder violates the rules, he will be deceiving the decoder deliberately if he knows what he's doing. If the decoder violates the rules, he will misrepresent the encoder deliberately if he knows what he's doing. In either event, communication is damaged. And the extent of the damage will depend on the circumstances. Going on, not only does the idea that everything is relative reject the existence of the sovereign creator, it does away with the objective authority of the biblical text. Well, of course, since a non-existent creator can't do anything, much less produce a revelation with direct authority. But that idea does not alter the fact, okay? And there will certainly be an accounting. Of course, Satan's servants will insist on denying the reality of such an accounting, but they are in for a rude awakening. Okay, but having said all the above, okay, I recognize that to affirm the divine inspiration of the Bible is a declaration of faith. An intelligent faith that is based on evidences that I consider to be adequate is still faith, since the evidence says are not absolute. Therefore, we're not dealing with science in an objective sense. And they are not absolute for a very good reason. Attention, please. The sovereign creator deliberately does not allow the evidences to be absolute because then there would be no true test. And the creator requires that people choose between good and evil. And the choice may not be coerced as it would be if the evidences were absolute. Going on, another very serious derivative of the doctrine that there is no true knowledge is the idea of, quote, your truths. That each person creates his own truth. Well, in itself, the very act of determining that you can define your own truth amounts to a rejection of God's truth. It demonstrates an attitude of rebellion against the sovereign creator, and rebellion against the creator is Satan's thing. Look, there's no such thing as your truth. It is really your falsehood. Someone who defines his own truth will almost certainly deny that he is a sinner and therefore will deny that he needs salvation. But the obvious difficulty with that is that denying that he is a sinner and needs salvation does not change the fact that someone is condemning himself to spend eternity in the lake of fire. By the way, to deny the existence of the lake does not change the fact. Okay, well, yeah, maybe not. I understand someone is objecting. If there really is no heaven or hell, my believing that they exist does not create them. Okay, I grant that, right? But it is equally true that if there really is both heaven and hell, someone's not believing that they exist does not get rid of them, does not destroy them, right? And there is a further detail that should be considered. If my belief is wrong, when I die, I have lost nothing except my expectation. But if that person's belief is wrong, when he dies, he lost everything and he lost it forever. Look, I like my chances better than that guy's chances, okay? Just by the way, let me have a little fun here. I once saw a nasty little exchange between two college students. It went like this: one student, what is the difference between true love and herpes? The other student, herpes is forever. Right, and hell also is forever. Going on, there are only two spiritual kingdoms in this world. While the sovereign creator was walking this earth in the body of Jesus, he declared, quote, he who is not with me is against me, and he who does not gather with me scatters. It's Luke 11:23 or Matthew 12:30. Note, please, that the sovereign does not permit neutrality. Either you are with him or you are against him. By the way, agnosticism is a passive rejection. Think about that. So even what we do is not neutral. If we are not gathering with him, we are scattering. There's no third option. No third option. No third party. Whoever is not with Jesus is with Satan automatically. And that applies to everything in this life. Okay, why do people reject the evidence, or at least ignore it? Well, they do that because Satan blinds their minds. That is plainly stated in 2 Corinthians 4:3 and 4, quote, so where our gospel has actually been concealed, it has been hidden from those who are being wasted, among whom the God of this age has blinded the minds of the unbelieving, so that the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God, should not dawn on them. Well, the sovereign Jesus also declared this truth when he explained the parable of the sower. In other words, he says, quote, these are the ones by the wayside where the word is sown, but as soon as they hear it, Satan comes and takes away the word that was planted in their hearts, end quote, Mark 4:15. In the parallel passage in Luke 8:12, Jesus adds the following words, lest they believe and be saved. Note that the word is already in the mind or heart of the person, and then Satan comes, he invades the mind, and he takes away that word. Well, I'm not sure just how this intrusion in our minds by the enemy works. Perhaps he causes a mental block of some sort. But the practical effect is that the word becomes ineffective, as if the person had not even heard it. In John 8:44, the sovereign declared that Satan is, quote, the father of lying, and that, quote, there is no truth in him. According to Hebrew idiomatic usage, the son of something is characterized by that something. So it follows that to be the father of something is to be the owner of that something. Several times in the upper room that last night, Jesus called the Holy Spirit the Spirit of the truth. That's John 14:17, 15:26, 16:13. So all truth belongs to the Holy Spirit, and all falsehood belongs to Satan. it follows that whenever someone lies, he will be serving Satan. And whenever someone embraces a lie, such as evolutionism, Marxism, humanism, relativism, etc., he will be giving Satan a bridgehead in his mind, which Satan will try to develop into a stronghold. A stronghold of Satan on any given subject does not allow one to think freely about that subject. The person is forced, literally forced, to stay with the lie. The only way out is for someone with the power of God to come and nullify the stronghold. If you've never thought about that before, now is a good time to start. That is serious. Going on, Ephesians 2:2 states that Satan is, quote, the spirit who is now at work in these sons of the disobedience, end quote. This spirit is presently at work, the verb is in the present tense, in, quote, the sons of the disobedience. Sons of something are characterized by that something, as we've said. And the something in this case is, quote, the disobedience. The text has the definite article. A continuation of the original rebellion against the sovereign of the universe. Okay, anyone in rebellion against the Creator is under satanic influence, direct or indirect. In most cases, a demon acts as Satan's agent since Satan is not omnipresent. That's when something more than the influence of the surrounding culture is required, which includes, by the way, the academic culture is controlled by Satan. Anyone in rebellion against the Creator will also have strongholds of Satan in his mind. That's absolutely certain. Further on the subject that our knowledge is in part, not relative, I offer the following. This is my suggestion. Most computers are binary. That is, they are programmed to make a sequence of binary choices, either plus or minus, yes or no. And over the years, the speed with which those choices are made has kept increasing. If I'm not mistaken, modern computers can process millions of such choices per second, which I find that difficult to comprehend. Okay, but I now suggest for the consideration of you in this case, that our opinion on any subject is also binary. Also, well, an opinion is made up of a number of components. Those components are either true or false. The higher the proportion of true components to false ones, the more nearly valid will the opinion be, the closer to its approximation to the fact. But because opinions are many and varied, they are commonly said to be relative. But the truth is not relative. And I suggest that the open-ended number of components that make up our opinions are either true or false, binary. Okay, to conclude, I will use Isaiah 29, verses 11 and 12. Quote, the whole vision has become to you like the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one who is literate, saying, read this, please. He says, I cannot, for it is sealed. Then the book is delivered to one who is illiterate, saying, read this, please. And he said, I am not literate. The result is that the people remain in ignorance about the contents of the book, okay? And they are condemned to suffer the consequences of that ignorance. Yeah. Really now, please think. Today, how many schools or churches or organizations of any kind teach that the Bible has objective authority? How many? How many teach the Bible at all? The consequences are not pretty. Okay. That's it for now. Thank you for listening, and may God bless us all.